Okay, so welcome to our webinar today on introducing ZoomText Fusion 11. So I'm Rebecca Clark, and our presenter today will be Trevor Boyd in our Melbourne office. So for anybody that's not used this Zoom program before, that's our so as we have done before, we may mute microphones during parts of the webinar, but we will be stopping for questions. You can mute or unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone on the bottom left of the screen, or by using Alt-A keystroke. You can also send us little messages in the chat area by selecting chat on the top of the controls. There's an option for chat, or again, Alt-H is the keystroke to get to that, and you can send us little messages. And I am recording this, so we'll be able to send that around afterwards. So I will just hand over to Trevor, who's going to go through this new ZoomText Fusion option.
Beautiful, thanks Rebecca. Now, it's been surprisingly technically demanding to make it all work, but we're just seeing how we go.
Meeting controls. Welcome to ZoomText 11. We know you're eager to start.
Hear that one?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, lovely.
Cool. Okay, I'll minimize this.
Video layouts.
So we're going to start off just by
ZoomText 11 Magnifier Reader. ZoomText application.
Understanding where the three programs now fit in. Originally we had ZoomText. ZoomText has been around for many, many years and was generated by a company called AI Squared. It was predominantly one there for people who had low vision. So originally it had no speech. It was just a very clever low vision program that could do very straight things like
Zoom level 2.2.5.
Seeing the text size. If you're seeing a very small image on the screen at the moment, and you may do, it's called Surface Pro, you should be able to increase the size of that.
Yeah, if you go to it, there is an option of view large speaker video. So that you should be able to see that hopefully. Okay. Okay. If anyone's having any issues, send us a message.
Yeah, send us a message. And what that allows you to do, and it was very, going back to this, it was a very straightforward program, and it had just some really handy features that everybody loved. First up was just a
2.3, 3.5, 4, 3.5, 2.2,
I was surprised
1.8.
who just preferred a little bit more magnification. Often people were using it below magnification of 2, and obviously greater, but it was just a really handy thing to increase. There were some useful things like the different settings, because you could have just a magnify mode or a single line, but often people were doing
color,
things like color
enhancements disabled,
pointer
enhancements disabled,
and the word to increase the I-beam, to give the I-beam when you're sort of word processing Word a little bit more indication of where the cursor was. People found that very handy as well. The whole thing with ZoomText and with Fusion is you play with it to see what works best for you. I would say ZoomText is one of the most underutilized pieces of software around, because often people just magnify to the correct size, and really that's as far as they go. But it's really
color enhancements enabled.
A lot of fun. It's all designed around, okay, you've got a picture of this color chart, mouse, I-beam, and if you click on them, it simply turns it to black and white. But also what you've got,
color enhancements disabled,
is you've got color. And a little bar. When you do that, you've got a normal, which is the
color,
standard
normal
checked setting. You've got a scheme, and the schemes are what ZoomText have found are very popular out there for users. So a scheme is already set up, and it might be something simple like invert brightness colors, simply yellow on black, or blue dye, black and white, white on black. And you can simply play with these.
Invert bright color.
About the trickiest thing that's happened with invert color is that when you're browsing the web, there's a plugin certainly that works well with Chrome, so it doesn't invert the colors of pictures, which is really handy if you actually want to look at photographs, because if they're inverted color, it looks pretty strange. But these are set up so that the plugin stops the color inversion on the pictures. But getting back to
use smart invert checked. Scheme checked has custom color.
The custom
checked. Scheme has submenu.
Is so that you can adjust
settings
to your specific requirements. So if I go into settings here.
Color.
Okay, so
screen enhancement settings.
Actually the settings for the whole range of things here, but so it could be, for example, a pointer. And the pointer says, okay, which pointer would you like?
Pointer normal.
Is it a scheme that already exists, i.e. a large yellow pointer, or if you specifically set up the characteristics of your pointer just to suit you, then that's fine. It might be yellow, you can pick the colors.
Color yellow.
You can pick the size, you can pick the thickness, the transparency of the thing, and also if you want other things to or if you like the pointer to change when you're doing specific actions. For example, if it's moving or if it's stationary, or if you want to press the shift or control key to give a circle or something like that to give a greater indication of where it is. Cursor is very similar. You can, like everybody,
cursor scheme.
Blue wedge when I see people using
blue wedge,
but there's lots of other options as well. So it's just a matter of going through those and deciding which would work for you. Some people are worried that they get a whole lot of settings happening and they don't like it and they don't know how to reset it, and that's fine, because the plan with Zoom
blue wedge
is that
normal.
What happens is that you go through your settings, you work it all out.
ZoomText 11 magnifier reader.
If you don't actually save the settings, it's all lost when you turn off ZoomText. Any temporary settings you've made are just lost. And when you restart, it just restarts as it was, ×2 standard color set. You can also
ZoomText application menu.
Simply save it as the default, and you can also save
ZoomText application menu
settings as well. So if you like a specific setup in specific applications, like you like working this way on the web and this way somewhere else, you can do that as well.
ZoomText application, ZoomText 11 meeting controls, yeah. ZoomText 11 not checked.
Things have changed, and that is, one of them is that that this explanation pops up whenever you're using the new ZoomText. This is version 11. The latest one is 11.6. It was released a couple of days ago, and that's what I'm using here. When you first start it, it'll come up with a couple of welcome messages like this, getting started with ZoomText 11. And it runs through some of the shortcut keys as well. Now with ZoomText, you'll find here it's a
welcome to ZoomText 11. We know you're eager to start using ZoomText and want to give you some extra help. Whether you're a brand new user or a veteran user, there's a lot to learn or relearn in ZoomText 11, especially the new command keys system, which is different from previous versions of ZoomText. So we recommend.
So there's a new command key set. One of the major issues I know with people is, as you increase the text size of ZoomText, so we're starting to get up into
2.2.2.3, 3.5,
or 8,
4,
the
6.
volume of screen, the amount of screen you're seeing becomes quite small. So manoeuvring around the screen becomes very much dependent on your spatial memory and understanding and memorizing how programs work. At some point here, people really did prefer, especially for sustained reading, people preferred the speech, and so speech was added to ZoomText. The next thing that would occur is that if you're studying, working at home and like to keep your efficiency high, one of the issues was navigating around. And so often there was a point where people would start using JAWS, for example. The issue was, originally going back a while, that JAWS and ZoomText simply wouldn't run active. You could install them on the same computer, but they wouldn't run together. A little while ago, a couple of years back, they then decided there was a protocol designed so they would both work together, but they had completely different command sets and completely different methodologies of working. And what this welcome to ZoomText thing here, as you heard it say about the command key, it's now for ZoomText a caps lock key. And this allowed people to navigate not only with the mouse, but also with shortcut keys. So if you wanted to zoom in and zoom out, it was caps lock up and down. So by pressing that key and going up and down, you could,
5, 4,
holding the caps lock key down, pressing
3.5, 2.5, 2.2, 1.6, 1.4, 1.2, 1.
That's a standard setting, times 1.
1.8,
I can go up.
2.75.
So I could enhance colours, again, caps lock, and the C key.
Color enhancements disabled. Color enhancements enabled.
So that's a standard colour set. So I could then start to be a little bit more efficient in the way I use this, because I could navigate around and I could control it using shortcut keys. And this was a caps lock key. So it became much more efficient to use.
Color enhancements disabled.
And also what I could do was if I was, for example, specific uses, I was reading something, then this also started to come up with reader tools.
Reader, voice.
One was the app reader. Well, there were some clear ones. So keyboard, it would echo my typing. Mouse, there are a couple of hands.
Mouse echo, mouse. Mouse echo disabled.
Because what I could do here would be,
mouse.
So for example, as I was moving around the mouse, if I had moving around the screen and had trouble reading, wherever just before I clicked the button, just to make sure that was what I actually wanted, I could have the hover settings. So wherever the mouse went over a button or went over text and stayed there for, say, I could adjust it half a second or something, it would then speak that. So there was some really handy...
Instant. Hover. Mouse echo set to hover mode.
Also, the app reader.
App reader
was very useful, because what I could do is if I had a page of information or a long email that rather than reading it visually, I could have it read to me. I could just go to the app reader and have it read. And there was a couple of different modes with that. So you can see ZoomText was a pretty comprehensive sort of program. Let's see.
Microsoft Edge, one running window. ZoomText and Microsoft Edge. HTTPS, zoom.us, new tab.
So if I go to freedomscientific.com,
Freedom Scientific products. Products submenu. Port. Welcome. Meeting control. Zoom Cloud Meetings. Blindness Solutions and one more page. Microsoft Edge. ZoomText 11-1 running. ZoomText 11 Magnifier Reader. Mouse.
Reader.
App Reader.
And I get now on my cursor is just a little
App Reader.
Okay.
JAWS.
It's just going really slowly.
Okay.
Could be.
It uses JAWS.
Okay.
The robust Bluetooth connectivity provides seamless use with Windows, Mac, iPhones, iPads, and Android smartphones and tablets.
Okay, so
Scanning and reading solutions.
I'm just going
Versatility
down,
and portability.
Going around the screen.
Our top-of-the-line scanning and reading appliances are fast, easy.
Okay, and I pause with Control, and Escape gets me out of that. So there's a fair bit of
ZoomText 11-1 running window.
So
ZoomText 11 magnifier reader. ZoomText 11 close. ZoomText 11 do you wish to
So now if we run JAWS, the JAWS obviously is strictly screen reading, so there's no text magnification whatsoever with JAWS.
JAWS Professional.
So there are two levels of JAWS, JAWS Home, JAWS Professional. There's very little difference. Basically, JAWS Professional is meant for the education workplace. JAWS Home is for individual home-based applications. And JAWS is
Search box edit. Type in text.
very well developed. It has, they're about to release JAWS 2018, which will be able to OCR documents, so you could scan something in on your flatbed scanner or Pearl camera and have it read to you. But JAWS is very comprehensive. The difference with JAWS and ZoomText is previously, if you were a mouse user, had been using the computer for some time and you started using ZoomText, ZoomText simply magnified the screen. So everything you did before in terms of navigating around, pointing and clicking, highlighting, all those sorts of activities, they were just stock standard. But now JAWS is here and the assumption is that you're probably not going to be able to see the mouse. And so what they had to come up with here is a whole
All apps checked. All apps list box recently added.
of options so that you could navigate around the screen purely by the keyboard. There are a whole bunch of, so obviously keyboard commands became very much, people began relying on keyboard commands. And there's a whole range of keyboard commands to navigate the web, to word process, to navigate around the screen. There's also another bunch that have always been within Windows. Control keys, we probably know a few of them. Control A for select all, Control C for copy, Control V for paste or view, and also just navigating around the screen. So here if I Alt-Tab.
Alt-Tab. Alt-Tab. Alt-Tab. Blindness solutions and one more page dash Microsoft Edge. Microsoft Edge.
So I can navigate around JAWS. I can, for example, call up programs just by pressing the Windows key.
Search box edit. Type in text. All apps. Start Zoom. New. Uninstall Zoom. New. Tab.
By hitting
Pin
tab.
tiles list box. Life at a glance group header. Calendar. Wednesday. Microsoft Edge. Photos. Play and explore group header. Word 2013. 4 of 9.
Listing, so it's giving me ideas of how many are on the screen, what to do. Once basically I locate what I'm after, I press
Enter.
Enter. And it will now load my Word file. The difference here is
Backstage view. New group box.
I've got
Recent. You haven't opened any documents recently. To browse for a document, start by clicking on Open Other Documents. We don't have any featured templates right now. You can use the search box.
So basically within JAWS, I'm using the insert key as a command key to make JAWS do things. Or I'm just using the standard.
Document 1-Word. Space. 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 Y.
So
Period. Enter. Hello, this is nice day. H-I-S space I-S space.
So
Hello, this is a nice day.
So here I am, and JAWS is very effective, operates in Word. But the difference is here now I'm really, before I'm going to get very far, I'm going to really have to learn a few shortcut keys and to get things going. So here's our JAWS program.
JAWS Professional. Quit JAWS dialog. Are you Microsoft Word document. Document 1.
If I go back to now my program and I'll load ZoomText. So this is basically loading both JAWS and ZoomText together. So in effect, what they've tried to do is if I'm a skilled ZoomText user, I've preserved the way my ZoomText skills. So I now have and can load various keyboard command sets. The other thing too is if I'm a JAWS user, it's preserved all those skills as well, because if I quietly come down here and have a look.
Notification overflow.
JAWS is sitting there as well. So there are some functions that
Desktop
happen through
folder view list view not so.
and there are some that will happen through ZoomText. But it's been designed in such a way that if I have JAWS skills and I have or ZoomText skills, those command sets are preserved. So I can basically set one or the other or both up to the way I prefer, and then I'm off and running again. So you'll see now it comes up with ZoomText Fusion Professional. When you do purchase Fusion, it will install both ZoomText 11 or whatever the current version is, and also the current version of JAWS. So those two will be there, and you can run them as we've been doing it just now independently. So here's ZoomText, or Fusion. It looks much the same as it did before. You can set this up because it's got some new features and things. What you'll find is, depending on what you set up the verbosity to be.
ZoomText Fusion Professional. Reader. Reader tab. Reader. Voice.
And the verbosity is how much does it
Echo. Verbosity button.
Any prompting. So as I wander around the screen, as I work within Fusion, the verbosity. So if I'm not very skilled at this and I'd like the some handy cues as I'm moving around, then I'd set that to high. If you fairly much know and you're, for example, you just need this for work or whatever, and you're very skilled, then you can set that down to low. I was talking to somebody earlier in the week who is a JAWS Fusion user, a JAWS basically ZoomText user, and they're looking at Fusion. When we were chatting away, they actually use their ZoomText on about sort of a 7 or an 8 times magnification. And it was really interesting because chatting to them, I said, "Oh, how do you use it?" And they said, "Oh, look, it's really useful because JAWS reads a lot of material for me." And I said, "Well, so why do you use ZoomText?" And they said, "Well, there's lots of things that I do that I really want to visually check. So if I want to pay a bill, I'm doing my net banking, I'm doing the financial stuff, all of those sorts of things. I want to be able to see what I'm actually doing before I actually say okay." So they really appreciated having both the visual and the JAWS functions all wrapped up into one package. So that
Menu
really
low
good.
Collapsed.
There are, as before, some pretty
Leaving menus.
comprehensive
Tools
with
tab.
this.
Tools. Finder.
So
Reader tab.
reader tool, the app reader, and also there are
Reading tools. App reader split button.
for
Menu.
example, where it says text view, it can take your web page and change it into a high contrast, word wrapped document that's very clear and easy to use. And you can again go into this.
Use app view check.
Example,
To move through items, press up or down arrow.
you can decide what size text, all of those types of features. And as I said before, one of the issues is really to have the time to go through all those features and really test it and set it up the way it really works for you, because that can sometimes make a big difference in the fatigue issue and how long you can actually spend viewing it.
App reader split button. Alt followed by or comma. App view settings. P. Leaving menus. Magnifier tab. Zoom.
So here we've got basically caps lock key as we did before. moving up and moving down in text size, adjusting windows. These little...
Open the Zoom Windows dialog box button. To activate, press spacebar.
What that does is we can control how this really works.
Window page.
For example,
settings for full. Overlay. Lens.
Lens.
Window type : combo box. Lens.
So here's my
3 of 8.
lens,
To change the selection, use the arrow.
which essentially looks like just holding a magnifying glass over. So I see the rest of the screen in its ×1 magnification, and I just see an area, and it's adjustable area to view magnified. What I might do is to see if there's any questions at this stage, just to see how we're going.
Okay. Any questions? I'll check if there's any.
Lens. Full.
It's okay, because there are also some recent features that ZoomText or Fusion now has. And one of those is a lot of people now at work have dual screens, and that's simply 2 screens plugged into them on one PC. I've actually got 2 screens on my desk. I love it because I can have my email on one screen and word processing and other apps happening on the other. ZoomText for a long time struggled with this, and you could have sort of ZoomText on one and a standard screen on the other, and those types of effects. What the latest release does have the ability to run separate applications on each screen, as I was describing. So I could have my email, for example, on one screen and other applications happening on another. And you can have ZoomText independently magnify each screen. So there's some really, really useful features now with ZoomText and dual screens. Some fascinating stuff, which I think's...
Magnification page. Magnification level. ZoomText Fusion Professional. Magnifier tab.
There are new voices out, which is pretty good. And just trying to think of other new features. Split screens. Different command sets, I think, was one.
Yep. Oh, they've got a new smart invert feature where you can view even if you've got reverse contrast on, you can see videos in and pictures color. In natural color on Internet Explorer, at least.
Color enhancements enabled. Screen enhance menu. Normal. To move through items, press up or down arrow. N. Color split button. Color split button. Alt followed by color enhancements disabled.
Look at that.
Normal checked. N. Scheme submenu. H. 1. Invert. Scheme submenu. H. Color split button. Alt followed by N, comma. Leaving menus. Blindness solutions and one more page. Blindness solutions and one more page dash Microsoft Edge. Microsoft Edge. Blindness solution.
I think it's just in Internet Explorer at the moment, that one. But not Edge.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, I know Chrome has that plugin.
Oh, Chrome does as well. Okay.
Yep. Because when Chrome senses JAWS, ZoomText running actually pops up with a little message, explanation how to actually add the plugin to Chrome.
Okay.
But,
ZoomText Fusion Professional. Magnifier tab. Screen enhancements. Color split button.
So
menu. Normal. To move through items, press up or down arrow. Color split button. Alt followed by N.
So one of the things I think that is very useful with this is to explore a bit, to work out what might be the best option. And it may vary between your Internet Explorer, your Chrome, your word processing and so on, because there are all these different viewing options. And I think the other one is just to manage...
Leaving menus. ZoomText application menu button expanded. Menu. Disable ZoomText. To move through items, press up or down arrow B.
So there's your desktop or desktop layouts. and it does explain the different ways of doing that.
Command keys. K.
There's also quite
Hotkey layout submenu. L. ZoomText application menu.
A good explanation about ZoomText in ZoomText Help about what it does. There's also quite a lot of, or quite a number of, in the ZoomText website, quite a number of support YouTube vids, which are really just short, fairly short, or some of them 10, 15 minutes, some of them shorter. And they simply run through a particular application of how to use ZoomText and how it all works. And they're particularly useful.
Configuration submenu.
Also,
C.
a quick note on configurations. If you find that a particular configuration really suits this particular, your use, you can
Application settings submenu.
Configurations save as default, and from then on, whenever you open it, that's how it'll open.
Application settings submenu. Preferences submenu. P. Hotkey layout submenu. L. Manage license submenu.
There's also the license. It has a if you purchase Fusion, you have 3 licenses basically for Fusion, ZoomText and JAWS. The updates are coming out fairly regularly at the moment. So when you're running ZoomText or any of these products, what will happen is that when you run them, it will indicate, it will tell you that there's an update available and download it.
Update authorization. Manage license submenu. M. Command keys.
There's also
K. Preferences submenu.
Preferences
P.
and program. You can decide whether you want ZoomText to start up initially. You may want it to, because you have to log on to your PC at home or at work, you may switch this on to allow ZoomText to magnify the screen before you've logged on so that your password comes up in large print, for example.
Application settings submenu. Configuration submenu. Collapsed.
Yeah, look, that's about all I wanted to cover with this. If you have any questions, you can certainly send them off to either Beck or myself, or info@quantumrlv.com.au. So, Are there any other questions? Just rounding that up.
I'll just check. No, we don't seem to have any questions. I was just going to say, Trevor, with the Fusion running, you have also got all the JAWS options like you showed. That's where you can go into their settings center there as well for the. It's got multiple voice.
Correct. And you've
settings
got
and
also,
anything that you normally have on JAWS. So yeah.
You've got all the JAWS skills. If you've got a good set of JAWS skills, they're all of those commands are still available.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if that was about it, I might share my screen because I just got some of the like the basic pricing up. Share screen. So, obviously, we do actually have pricing if people have already got ZoomText and or JAWS. There are levels of pricing to move up, particularly thinking of also organizations or if like education libraries or shared computers. If you've got a ZoomText and a JAWS, but they're older licenses, you can convert it to a Fusion license. So you've just got the one number to remember. For the single user professional price, it's 2,170, and for the single user home it's 1,715. So it's not that much more than just a JAWS license. And there are also there is a maintenance agreement option as well, which gets the next 2 upgrades. So yeah, and there's obviously multi-user versions like we have with ZoomText and JAWS. You can get things in blocks of 5 users depending on what you need. So yeah, if you've got any other questions or feedback or want any more demonstrations, then do give us a call, 1300 883 853, or the info address. Also, I'll mention, hopefully as you regularly attend our webinars and things, you should have got an email about a seminar that's happening, seminars that are happening around the country in November, where we do have Eric Domery from VFO, Freedom Scientific. He's also known as Mr. JAWS. He's coming over to talk about JAWS and Fusion and all things software, and hopefully a bit of Braille as well. So please let me know if you haven't had that invitation, and we'll get that to you with the details. So thank you, Trevor, as always.
Problem.
Okay, and if that's it, then I'll I'll send around the recording to people. Cheers.
Yes, thank you, Beck.
Thanks.